Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we're diving into a literal centuries-old cat and mouse game. You've got impenetrable institutions on one side, and on the other, the sheer absolute ingenuity of inmates obsessed with breaking out. We're looking at the biggest prison escapes in history. And what's really captivating here isn't just the thrill of the breakout itself. It's what these wild events actually reveal about human planning, massive institutional vulnerabilities, and this continuous, never-ending evolution of security.
So how do you escape an impenetrable fortress? I mean, just think about the sheer audacity required to even attempt something like this. You're up against concrete, solid steel, strict daily routines, and highly advanced surveillance systems designed specifically to keep you locked inside. Yet, despite literally every precaution ever invented, prisoners have repeatedly pulled off these astonishing escapes that completely capture the world's imagination. To really grasp this continuous arms race between confinement and escape, we've got to start by looking at the ultimate symbol of security.
Section 1. Escaping the unescapable. Let's get right into it. Few names evoke as much dread and, really, finality as Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary. This wasn't just a building, right? It was an isolated island fortress entirely surrounded by the freezing, super fast-moving waters of San Francisco Bay. For a long time, it was widely considered basically the most secure prison in the United States. But in 1962, three inmates, Frank Morris and the brothers John and Clarence Anglin, decided to put that reputation to the test. They spent months secretly working on a plan that would honestly become the stuff of absolute legend. Now, what's really interesting here is the incredible level of physical deception these guys employed. They didn't just dig a hole, no. They crafted incredibly realistic dummy heads from paper, soap, and actual human hair they snagged from the prison barbershop. They literally placed these heads in their beds just to fool the guards during nighttime inspections. It really shows you how much patience and just careful, intense observation of prison routines went into this whole thing. They knew exactly how the guards checked on them, and they exploited that specific routine perfectly. Let's walk through this incredibly methodical heist. Step 1. Using improvised tools, they secretly enlarged the ventilation openings in their cells, and this took several months. Step 2, they squeezed through those openings into these unused utility passages, eventually climbing all the way up onto the roof and crossing the island. And Step 3, they launched a handmade raft constructed entirely from stolen raincoats right into the dangerous bay waters. A massive search followed, obviously, but the men were never conclusively found. Did they survive those freezing currents? Did they perish? It's this endless historical debate that still fascinates investigators today. But that intense physical isolation of Alcatraz brings us to our next phase. Moving from sheer physical barriers, we enter a realm that required massive psychological dedication and internal organization. Section 2. Masterclasses in Dissection. History records some truly dramatic escapes during wartime. But honestly, none is more famous than the Great Escape from Stalag Luft 3 during World War II. This was a massive, highly secret operation by Allied prisoners of war to dig multiple tunnels right beneath the camp. And this wasn't some solo rogue effort. It required the unbelievable cooperation of hundreds of men working under extremely difficult, highly monitored conditions for months on end. And this brilliantly illustrates their engineering genius, because they were just digging with handmade tools. They engineered entire underground ventilation systems and miniature railway tracks just to move the excavated sand and hide it. While all of that was happening underground, up above, they created concealed workshops to manufacture forged documents for the escapees. Now, only a limited number of prisoners successfully escaped before the whole plan got discovered, but the operation became completely legendary because of its unmatched organization, creativity, and sheer teamwork. But, deception doesn't always require a massive team or a giant tunnel. Just take the famous 1934 case of convicted murderer John Dillinger. He reportedly escaped from a county jail using literally nothing more than a carved piece of wood painted with shoe polish to look like a firearm. The sheer absurdity and brilliance, really, of this bluff proves a vital point. Intense psychological pressure and simple deception can sometimes be just as effective as overwhelming physical force when you're trying to bypass security. Though as security procedures were strengthened to prevent these tunnels and wooden guns, escape tactics had to escalate dramatically. Which brings us to Section 3, brute force and helicopters. When we map all this out across history, a really stark shift emerges. We started with the Alcatraz raft in 1962 and the secret WW2 tunnels, but jump ahead to 1983 at the Maze prison, and suddenly the method is vehicle hijacking. Fast forward to 2018 with Redoin Fide, and we are looking at a full-on helicopter extraction.
The tactics radically evolved from quiet, improvised digging to loud, highly aggressive, and modernized operations coordinated by entirely outside networks. The 1983 Maze prison breakout in the UK is pretty much a perfect example of this shift. This was absolutely not a stealthy nighttime sneakout. Dozens of inmates systematically overpowered prison officers, seized control of massive parts of the facility, and escaped using a hijacked prison vehicle. It's actually considered one of the largest prison escapes in modern European history. It exposed massive security weaknesses and really demonstrated how coordinated planning and internal organization could completely overwhelm even a heavily guarded correctional institution.
And then we have the ultimate modern brute force escape. Helicopter extractions really represent an extraordinary chapter in this history. In 2018, French inmate Redouane Fade escaped in an operation totally orchestrated by organized crime. Armed accomplices hijacked a helicopter, the aircraft landed straight inside the prison complex, Fade climbed aboard, and boom, they departed. Unlike Alcatraz, which took months and months of chipping away at concrete, this meticulously coordinated operation lasted only minutes. It's a staggering display of speed and really highlights the highly evolved, aggressive tactics used by modern criminal networks today. But of course, every time inmates found a new way out, institutions had to find a new way to keep them in. These exact, high-profile breaches basically forced the creation of today's high-tech correctional facilities.
Section 4. The modern security response. So, the crucial point is that historical tools of escape directly catalyzed our modern countermeasures. Where inmates once relied on improvised digging tools and hidden floor compartments, officials now deploy ground-penetrating technology, deep structural inspections, and vibration sensors. Actually, authorities can now detect unusual underground activity well before an escape plan can even be completed. Today's inmates are up against an overwhelming, practically invisible technological wall. Facilities are totally blanketed by high-definition surveillance cameras, biometric identification scanners, and electronic locking mechanisms. And it goes even further than that. Drones patrol the perimeters from above, while artificial intelligence works behind the scenes, constantly scanning endless hours of footage to detect suspicious behavior patterns before an incident even occurs. Because of these incredibly advanced systems, successful long-term escapes have become exceedingly rare.
And that brings us to an incredibly important reality check. While dramatic escapes always get massive media attention, the overwhelming majority of them end in recapture. Once past the walls, fugitives face a massive investigative net. Between global law enforcement cooperation, rapid DNA analysis, international fingerprint databases, and facial recognition systems, disappearing into a crowd is almost impossible today. Plus, digital communication monitoring means that the very moment they try to reach out for help, their digital footprint tracks them right down.
But correctional administrators know that thicker walls and smarter cameras aren't the whole solution. Psychology plays a massive role. Look back at historical escapes. They succeeded because inmates patiently observed guard schedules and found multiple tiny vulnerabilities that eventually combined to create an opportunity. Therefore, modern management emphasizes a psychological defense. We're talking continuous security assessments, rigorous staff training, and extreme human vigilance. It's all about anticipating human patience, and honestly, that's a lesson applicable not just in prisons, but in literally any high-stakes security environment today, from cyber defense to corporate data protection. Which leaves us with this final, truly provocative thought. As our security systems become incredibly smart, utilizing AI, drones, and real-time biometrics, will prison escapes become completely impossible, or will they just become even more sophisticated? This endless arms race between institutional resilience and sheer human ingenuity provides some deep, valuable lessons about security and justice systems all around the world. It's a fascinating balance to ponder. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and definitely keep questioning the world around you.